The mining station on Kepler 442b was supposed to be routine. Adnan had been working the outer rim extraction sites for 3 years now, and the barren, crystalline landscape had become as familiar as his own reflection. The twin suns cast everything in harsh amber light, making the mineral deposits shimmer like scattered diamonds across the wasteland. He was calibrating the atmospheric processors when he first heard it, a soft, chittering sound, almost like a distressed bird. Adnan paused, his weathered hand stilling on the control panel. There weren't supposed to be any native life forms on this planet. The initial surveys had been thorough. The sound came again, closer this time. Turning slowly, Adnan's breath caught in his throat. Crouched behind a cluster of violet crystals was something that shouldn't exist. A creature no larger than a house cat, covered in iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to silver in the light. Its large, multifaceted eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. But it was the creature's posture that gave Adnan pause, hunched, trembling, clearly malnourished. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered, reaching for his comm device to contact the research station. His colleague Neha would want to know about this immediately. The creature's head tilted at the sound of his voice, and it took a tentative step forward. Adnan froze. The thing was following him. Over the next few hours, as Adnan went about his duties, the creature, which he'd mentally dubbed Scales, remained a constant shadow. It kept its distance, but never let him out of sight. When Adnan stopped for his lunch break, Scales crept closer, those enormous eyes tracking every movement as he unwrapped his protein rations. The chittering grew more urgent, more desperate. "Hungry, are you?" Adnan asked softly. Against protocol, he tossed a small piece of his meal toward the creature. Scales pounced on it with surprising speed, devouring the morsel in seconds. The grateful trill that followed made something twist in Adnan's chest. That evening, back at the main station, Adnan found Neha hunched over her xenobiology console, her dark hair falling in waves around her face as she studied atmospheric readings. "Neha, you need to see this," he said, uploading the footage he'd captured of Scales. She looked up, her brown eyes widening as the holographic display showed the small creature. "Adnan, this is impossible." Our scans showed no complex life forms. "Tell that to my new friend," Adnan replied. "The little guy's been following me around all day. Looks half-starved." Neha's fingers flew over her interface, cross-referencing the creature's appearance with the Galactic Biological Database. "I'm not finding any matches. This could be a completely unknown species. Unknown and apparently dying out," Adnan said grimly. "I've been thinking about those atmospheric changes we detected last month. What if something happened to their ecosystem?" Over the following days, Scales became a permanent fixture in Adnan's routine. The creature had figured out the human schedule and would be waiting at the mining site each morning, chittering softly in what Adnan had come to recognize as greeting. In return, Adnan shared portions of his meals, watching as the little creature gradually became less skeletal, its scales regaining their lustrous shine. But it wasn't just about the food. Scales seemed to crave companionship as much as sustenance. When Adnan worked, the creature would curl up nearby, making soft, rhythmic sounds that reminded him of a cat's purr. When storms rolled across the planet's surface, Scales would huddle closer to Adnan's equipment, seeking the comfort of his presence. Neha's research revealed the sobering truth. The planet's ecosystem was collapsing due to a gradual shift in solar radiation, a change too slow for their initial surveys to detect but devastating to native life. The creatures that had once thrived here were dying off, their food sources withering. "According to my calculations, Scales might be one of the last of his species," Neha told Adnan one evening, her voice heavy with the weight of the discovery. "The atmospheric composition is changing too rapidly for most native life to adapt." Adnan stared out at the alien landscape, thinking of the small creature who waited for him each day with such trust, such hope. "So what do we do? Officially, we document the species and continue our mission. The mining operation can't be stopped for one creature. And unofficially?" Neha smiled, the expression transforming her serious features. "Unofficially, I've been working on something. A portable habitat unit, self-sustaining with artificial atmosphere generation. It could support a small creature indefinitely." The next morning, Adnan arrived at the mining site to find Scales waiting as always. But something was different. The creature looked weaker, its movements sluggish. The planet was dying faster than they'd anticipated. "Come on, little guy," Adnan said softly, kneeling down and extending his hand. For the first time, Scales didn't hesitate. The creature climbed onto his palm, its tiny claws gripping gently. The portable habitat was no larger than a briefcase, but it represented something profound. Humanity's refusal to let hope die, even in the face of cosmic indifference. As Adnan settled Scales into his new home, watching the creature explore the carefully crafted environment, he felt a familiar surge of pride in his species. Humans might not be the strongest or the fastest in the galaxy. They might not have the most advanced technology or the longest lifespans, but they had something else, and stubborn refusal to accept that some things were simply beyond saving. Weeks later, as their transport lifted off from the dying planet, Adnan watched Scales through the habitat's transparent aluminum walls. The little creature had not just survived. He was thriving, his scales now brilliant with health, his chittering calls now songs of contentment rather than desperation. "You know," Neha said, settling into the seat beside him, "the research station on Europa has been looking for xenobiological specimens. Scales could live a full life there, maybe even find others of his kind that we haven't discovered yet." Adnan nodded, his throat tight with emotion he didn't expect. In saving one small, desperate creature, they had done something that mattered. They had proved that even in the vast, often cruel universe, compassion could triumph over indifference. Scales pressed himself against the habitat wall closest to Adnan, those large eyes filled with what could only be described as gratitude. The last hope had become a new beginning, carried forward by the one species in the galaxy stubborn enough to believe that every life, no matter how small, was worth saving.